to introduce our keynote speakers. So when we started to plan this event last year, we were talking about how can we really kick it off with a bang and who can be a great keynote speaker. And Rushton Hurley's name jumped to the top of that list instantly. Rushton has an extensive and varied background in education. He's been a Japanese language teacher, a principal of an online school, and a successful social benefit entrepreneur. He is currently the executive director of nextvista.org, the global project lead at the Krauss Center for Innovation, and the current president of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. Rushton's recognized locally, nationally, and globally for his innovative use of digital media in education and for his insights into an ever-changing digital world. So please join me in welcoming Rushton Hurley.
What I'm going to talk about to get us going today is how we see the work we do as educators, how we look at the kinds of things that we experience on a regular basis, how we try and pull out the very best from these kids and from ourselves. So, as we leap into this, I want us to think in terms of caring about sharing our ideas. When you come to a program and somebody gets up and spouts ideas, profundity, profundity, profundity. I mean, yeah, that's one thing. However, there is so much talent and experience and expertise in the room that we want to be able to tap. So, if you have a device, so you have a laptop with you, or a tablet, or your phone, or you have a chip in your head, or whatever it is, right? Go ahead and open up a page to this browser, or open up a browser to this page even. And what this is a place where we can share ideas. If you think in terms of different things that pop into your head as you go, toss this stuff into the chat. The chat is a place where the ideas can become very concrete for your experiences. I have plenty of things that I'm excited to share with you, but you're the ones with the knowledge of your setting. And so if what you do is you hear a particular idea and you say, I'd love to see that happen with our fifth graders, the program that we have for this or that or the other thing is something that I think would really benefit, and you toss that into the chat, there may be somebody on the other side of the room who reads that, and that kind of trips a new thought for that person, and that becomes a program that helps lots and lots of kids. One of the things that we tend to be quite poor at in education is sharing ideas, brainstorming how we can make our environments better in all sorts of different ways, and just tossing ideas into the mix. If you have ideas, toss them into the chat. Go ahead and, if you're not used to chats, then, it might be a good idea to get a certain amount out of your system right now. So, feel free to toss, your favorite bit of, Go Kings, or whatever your kind of big exciting thing is, and toss it into there just so that that's there. Get social, toss something into the chat. Now, one of the things about sharing ideas is that it's also a place where we can share links, right? So I'm going to give you a quick example of that. Here we are in the chat, and if I say, okay, well, there's lots of freebies at my little charities website here, and indeed that's right. So what this is a link to a lot of different free resources. There are amazing and very powerful free resources for you to be able to work with and explore and have students work with, and often people have the sense of, well, if I'm going to get something like that going, I have to fill out a PO. There are these barriers that kind of come in. It's better just to have cool free stuff available to you. So that's a link. One of the advantages to using a system like this is it becomes very easy to share a link. So if you've called this up, then any link that I happen to toss out there will be one you can get to very easily. And you are also welcome to toss in links of your own. This is also kind of a good way of sharing stories, and I think I will start kind of the formal presentation today with a story. So, this is my babe wife. Now, I don't mean to suggest that I have lots of wives and this one is the babe. Really what I'm saying is that this is my wife and she's a babe. And Tabitha is my babe wife. And Tabitha and I have a number of kind of little rituals for ourselves. And one of the things that we do is at the end of each year, in late December, we'll go up to San Francisco, spend a few nights up there, and we'll park somewhere on the southern end of the Golden Gate. And then if you get there early enough, you can park, right? And then what we'll do is we'll walk across the bridge and take in the view from over here, just looking at the city, looking over here at Alcatraz, all that kind of stuff. We love to have that walk. We love to see the people that are out at that time. We love to see the city from across the bridge. We love to just see the scenery there. There's so many cool things to see. And if we do it on January 1st, which we sometimes do, we see people who are still celebrating the changeover of the year, which is kind of fun and exciting, especially because they've been up all night. We're just morning people, and we get up, we're like, ding, ding. They're like, welcome, Happy New Year's. All right, good. So lots of fun stuff. There are other things we do while we're in San Francisco, and one of them has to do with the wild and crazy people that we are. We go see a movie. How many of you, like, that defines your wild and craziness as well, right? My people. Excellent. All right. So on December the 30th last year, Tabitha and I were up in San Francisco, and we decided to go see a movie. So went into the AMC, 14 on Van Ness, right? Went up to the ticket window, which is not the ticket window at the Van Ness, but all good. Went up to the ticket window and I said, I'd like 2 tickets for The Imitation Game. And she looked at me and she said, that'll be $14. And I thought, that's a fantastic price. And then our buddy who was there with us got up to the next window and said, I'd like 1 ticket for The Imitation Game. And they said, that'll be $12. And I thought, couple special. So we went upstairs, we watched the movie. Imitation Game is an amazing film, right? Went back, the next day, we're walking around, this is December 31st, and Tabitha kind of got that look in her eye, and I looked at her, and I knew exactly what she was thinking, right? We went and saw another movie. All right, so we go back to the AMC, and I get up to the counter there, and I said, I'd like 2 tickets for The Hobbit. And she looked at me and she said, that'll be $24. And I said, okay, I want you to know I'm willing to pay that. However, I was here last night and we saw The Imitation Game and it was $14 for the 2 of us. Was there a promotion for couples or something like that? And she said, no. I said, well, what yields 2 tickets for $14? She said, oh, you must have gotten the senior discount. Can I get a woo-hoo for the senior discount, actually? It was my first, so there you go. But I do kind of get it. It was how she saw me, right? On the 30th when I'd walked in, I was all bundled up. You know how San Francisco is. In July 5th, it can be like freezing, right? And so I'm all bundled up. I hadn't shaved, so I've got kind of stubble all over. And as you can tell, I'm a little more gray than black, at this point in my life. And she looked at me, on that first night and just thought, I don't even need to card the gentleman. He gets the discount. And there it was. I saved $10, right? It was how she saw us. And that's part of, I think, what we experience, as teachers. How do we see the world around us and how do we react to the world based on what we're seeing? How do we see ourselves? How do we see ourselves as teachers? Who are we, right? Who are we? Who are these people who kind of walk into our classrooms? What is it that we do? And I think one of the things that we see in ourselves is that we see that we are people who bring out the best in our students, right? We have these messages for the kids. We have messages like that. We tell them, your effort matters. We tell them that, your failures are opportunities to learn and to leap forward, and that your successes can change the world around you. These are messages that are a part of that piece of how we see who we are as people who bring out the best in our students. But there is a fair question to ask, which is, how do they see us? How do the students see us? Because I think there's a little more nuance to that. In one sense, for example, do they see us as the caring adults who bring out the best in them? Yeah, that is certainly the truth from, for some percentage of the time. But there is more, right? They also see us as the caring adults who will forgive their regular lapses into mediocrity. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that how often do kids give you work? You've given them an assignment, right? And they bring you the work, and what they're really hoping is that you'll kind of ignore the fact that they did okay when they could have done good, or they did good when they could have done great. They're kind of wondering, will this person kind of bother me about how much better I could have done? Will it just be a facial expression? Will they say something? That kind of thing. Are we people who forgive their regular lapses into mediocrity? In essence, when that becomes the dynamic in the room, the kids are really wondering, is my job merely to check off boxes? You give me an assignment, I do it. Moving on. right? How good it is kind of one of these kind of open questions as to whether it's a really big deal or not. So when we think about this, when we think about the kids coming in and just trying to get the job done, right? Here. Can I take this off the list of the things that I have to do? Can I take this off the list of the things that are required for this class? Can I take this off the list of things that oppress me, right? That's clearly not where we want to be, because there's a certain excitement that comes from watching a kid do something really well. We know that these kids can do really well. We know it. It's actually why we teach, right? Because we know we can get them to see what they're capable of doing even when they kind of hold themselves back from it for all sorts of reasons. And part of what I do, my work, is to get kids to see what they can bring themselves to do by kind of linking that thing between effort and success and showing it and having evidence of it. I'm going to talk about that heavily with my group in the workshop this morning. When we talk about getting them to show what they can do using digital media tools. So my little charity, this is the logo for Next Vista for Learning. It's my little charity. Well, what is it? It's an online library of videos by and for teachers and students everywhere. It's free to use, free to contribute to, it's free to download from. It's all for a student audience. It's all screened content. It's all out there to essentially save the world from ignorance, one creative video at a time. Boom. Okay, so that's kind of my own little thing. And what is this about? Well, we get teachers and students around the world to create videos about something one might encounter in school and share them out so that somebody might go, oh, okay, there's an insight. There's an insight that helps me learn something. So I'm going to show you a video. Now, the video I'm going to show you is one that came in via one of our contests. We do loads of contests trying to get kids to, kind of create, creative little pieces about learning something or other and to share that. So the video is one that came from a school in Campbell near San Jose, and we'll tell you a little bit more about it afterwards, but I want to know what you think of it. This video is called Literally. Here we go.
Literally. It's a very common word for English speakers of all countries and of all ages. The word literal was recorded to have been first used in the 14th century with the meaning of as written in letters. Likely, Merriam-Webster Dictionary has defined it to be according to the letter of scriptures or adhering to fact. Hence, the adverb form literally has been defined as in a literal sense or actually. However, modern English speakers have been using literally in order to exaggerate and emphasize a point. I can say, my brain literally blew up when I studied for finals. But we know that this is not true because I am still alive. If this informal usage of the word didn't drive lexicologists mad enough, Merriam-Webster took it further by making it official. In August 2013, it added a second definition, in effect or virtually, which seems to be exact opposites of the first definition. You might be asking, how is this even possible? How can a definition be altered so drastically? Well, the truth is that it is quite normal for such things to happen. English has changed a lot. It has been influenced by Anglo-Saxons, Old Norse, and the Latin-derived Romance languages over the course of 1500 years to become English as we know it today. But we're not done. English is still being changed by languages of pop culture and social media, which has spread trends faster than ever. In the case of literally, it may have been the result of TV sitcoms that utilize the word in certain ways. One thing we know for sure with this is that English is not dying. Its frequent use across the globe allows for changes in meaning and style. As animals adapt to this changing environment, English too adapts according to the surrounding culture. English is not a dying language. It's alive. Literally.
It's fun to see kids raise their game. And you look at something like this. I mean, there's a point in this video at which Juwan says, if this informal usage of the term didn't drive lexicologists mad enough. We don't talk that way. No one talks that way. Or hardly anyone talks that way. Right? However, we would all like to think that in articulating the nuances of the things we learn, we can bring ourselves to use polysyllabic terms that might allow us to get very specific about what we're trying to convey. We'd love to get kids in that kind of mode where they are confident being able to speak at a higher level intellectually. Whatever the challenges may be, whatever grade level they may be, being able to take their game up is part of what we do. And so when we think about this and we think about the different kinds of things we do to pull this out of them, there are all kinds of moments where we stop and we think, am I doing the right thing? Now, this particular video comes from a set, and by the way, let me take you to that video. So you're going to get these slides later. That's actually not a threat, it's an opportunity, right? So I'm going to give you the link, you can have the slides if you want them. Now, there are links in all of these, so here's the link to that video. And here is the link to all of the videos from that teacher's class. So she had 4 classes of senior English last year. And there was really kind of a bold decision on her part that yielded this and a number of other videos. And the decision was this. In about September, October, about a year ago, she's looking ahead to the end of the semester and she's thinking, well, how am I going to end the semester? Well, here's how I usually do it. I get the multiple choice exam that our department puts together. The kids cram for about 2 days before the final. They walk in, they fill out all of the bubbles, I take it over to the Scantron machine, it's graded very quickly, and 2 weeks later, they've forgotten all of the stuff that they crammed in right before the test. Now, I don't know whether that describes your environment or not, but for her, she looked at it and she thought, I don't want to do that. I don't want that to be another piece of how I go through the year. Instead, I want to try something a little different. And she heard about our contest, in 90 seconds or less, creatively explain something one might encounter in school, right? Use copyright-friendly material from specified sites. And she said, okay, I'm going to have each of my students give this a shot. They're going to take things that they've studied over the course of the semester, things like writing thesis statements, things like themes in Hamlet, things like the background to Dante's Inferno, things like Emily Dickinson poetry, all of this kind of cool stuff. And I'm going to have them make these videos. And she walked them through a process that doesn't involve a lot of technical knowledge. Matter of fact, you could be someone who's like, tech, man, this internet thing's a fad, you know. I mean, you could be in that space, right? And you could still have students design videos, a written assignment that asks them to come up with a script for a 90-second video explaining something, where you're looking at what they wrote and you can see in what they wrote whether they are meaningfully working with the things that you taught. Are they accurately kind of finding the detailed pieces of this particular concept? Are they bringing some kind of insight to it that shows they're taking it somewhere? That's all stuff you can do with pencil and paper. However, she decided, no, I think there might be something to having them create the videos and submit it, because not only are they getting feedback from me, they're going to get feedback from this kind of caffeinated guy who goes around and talks to teachers in different places. And then some of these videos, if they meet all the standards, well, actually, and I don't mean the academic standards, I mean like the standards for our site. If they meet the standards, then we'll post them. If we think it'll be helpful to somebody out there to learn something, we'll post it. So of our 110, 20 students, whatever it was, we actually ended up with, I think, 86 videos here, 86 or 87 videos here. So it's our chance to kind of celebrate what they do. But there's another thing in play. And that other thing in play is something quite important with regard to the nature of the students' work. Because what we want are students to do their best. How many of you would say that you have students who underperform? Thank you. It's a bit of an are you paying attention question, isn't it, right? I mean, we got kids who got to walk in, if they can even get that together, right? But it's not as if they're incapable. They tend to be capable. There's any number of things kind of impinging on their interest in actually trying hard. But one of the things that we do that is a bit counterproductive is that we often make the audience of their work singular, i.e. us. And that's where the work that goes into Next Vista for Learning, our little video library, where these kinds of projects happen, makes a bit of a shift. And this is something that I say everywhere where I talk, because I think it's important. When students know that others will see their work, they want it to be good. And when it's just for the teacher, they want it to be good enough. Now that difference between good and good enough is a big one. It's a big one. Good enough means they're just checking off a box. Here, am I done? Good means, here, what do you think? That moment where it's like, here, are you going to turn and look at me with that look in your eyes? Look what you did. You did this? Really? I'm impressed. The nature of praise factors into this. There's all kinds of things about how we communicate that allows the kids to get into a space where what they really, really want to do is a good job. And what we can do using technology in interesting ways is expand this audience so that the work becomes something that they want to be good because there are multiple reasons for it to be good. So when we think about something like this, we have to stop in a minute and say, technology being useful for this is fine, yes, but all the technology in the world won't mean squat if we don't address a more fundamental issue, which is the nature of our questions. Because I will tell you this, you ask counterproductive questions on a regular and perhaps daily basis. You're like, well, that's kind of rude, we just met, you just No. We all do that. As teachers, that's a part of what we do. You might say, well, I'm still mildly offended. Why don't you prove to me that that's the case? All right. Here's a question. So one of the questions that we ask that is really, really counterproductive, and I mean counterproductive, right, is this question right here. Okay, who doesn't understand? We ask it. We ask that question. You might say, well, wait a minute. No, but we want to know who doesn't understand. It would be really useful to know who understands. And yes, it would be very useful to know who understands and who doesn't understand, and that's not what they heard. The students heard a different question. You heard yourself say, who doesn't understand? What they heard was, who would like to raise your hand and announce to the room that you're an idiot? Anybody? No one? I must have explained it well. Kid in the back, oh, I never get this. This kind of thing. It's a counterproductive question, not because of what we meant, but because how it was heard, how the message was received. You might say, okay, all right, I can see that. But there are others? Yes, there are. I'll only highlight one, but I think it's a doozy. A doozy, pardon my technical terms, right? What is that question? Well, that question is this. Who understands? You might go, oh, come on, right? You got to know who understands. Yes. And here's how we usually phrase it. Who knows the right answer? You're like, oh, wait. That's a bedrock piece of teaching. Who knows the right answer? Okay, here's my point. What happens when you ask a group of students who knows the right answer? I'll tell you what happens. Most of the room defers to the 3 or 4 kids who always get the right answer. Am I right? I don't think we see ourselves as people whose job it is to just validate the living daylights out of 3 or 4 kids while everybody else watches on. That's not who we are. We are those people who get the kid who's reluctant to raise his hand, her hand, and stop and say, I think I can do that. What about this idea? To create this kind of space where they are willing to toss an idea into the group. To create the kind of environment with the students in the classroom that allows them to say, I can share an idea here. I won't be ridiculed for it. I won't be immediately judged. All kinds of pieces flow into this. There's a huge difference between who knows the right answer and what might one answer be. What's a possibility? If you ask what's a possibility, there is no wrong answer. Well, let's work with that. How might we work with that idea? And suddenly we're really kind of looking into something very new. Because there's a big difference, right? There's a big difference between trying to get the right answer, and trying to see how they think. There are certainly times when the right answer is a good thing to have, right? So, for example, you're with your significant other, you're about 30 minutes from home, driving down the highway, and you turn to your significant other and you say, did you turn the oven off before we left? There's a right answer to that question, right? You may be with your principal moments before a class starts. The principal says, I'd like to observe your class today. Do you have a lesson plan for this class? There's a right answer to that question as well. But the whole bit about right answers, right? The whole bit about right answers, yeah, we want them to get the right answers, but what we really, really want to know for what we do as teachers is we want to know how they think. How do they think? How are they looking at the world? How are they taking these things that we teach them and stop and go, could it be like this? Does this relate to this over here? And when we invite those kinds of questions, we're actually moving things in a very, very different direction. And we do it via interesting questions of our own. This is Jamie Cassett, all right? Now, Jamie's a really interesting guy. He actually works for Google. His title, I kid you not, is Education Evangelist. That would be an interesting business card. Hello, My name is Jamie. I'm an education evangelist. Wow. All right? But what's interesting about him is not his job title. What's interesting to me about this guy is that he asks really cool and interesting questions. Think for a minute about the kinds of questions that we ask in certain circumstances. Let's say, for example, that you are meeting a teen or a tween, right? And you're meeting that person for the first time. Perhaps you're visiting friends. This is your friend's kid, something along these lines. What are you going to say? Now, there are questions that we ask that are somewhere on a spectrum between informational and what I'll call social functional. Now, what do I mean by social functional? For example, if you see a friend and the friend says, "Hey, how you doing?" That's a social functional question, almost always. Tone could change it to an informational question, but "Hey, how you doing?" is social functional. What they're really looking for is something like this: "Good, doing good, how about you?" That's what they're looking for. Sometimes people take a social functional question, they treat it as information. "Hey, how you doing?" "Well, not that well, really. I've got kind of a problem in my knee, and I've got this thing on the back that's kind of festering." And you're like, TMI, 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 I don't need to know, right? We treat things differently based on kind of that moment of how we choose to communicate about it and how we want to communicate about it. Which brings us back to the kid that you're meeting. You're meeting the teen and the tween, and you say, what to the kid? You're getting to know this kid. What's one of the questions you ask? I would contend that one of the likely questions that you would ask is this question that's on that spectrum somewhere. Probably somewhere a little down here. And it's this: what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be? Now, how many of you knew what you wanted to be when you were, say, 14? All right? Several of you did. Several of you are like, "I wanted to be a teacher and change lives, and here I am today." And you're like, "Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Cool. Awesome." But most of us are like, "I don't know," right? I mean, we had no clue. So asking the question is actually a low percentage in terms of information producing something that kind of yields a certain kinds of conversation. It's not a bad question. It might actually generate something interesting. Fine. I say all of that to say that Jamie asks a different question. When he meets a young person, he doesn't ask, what do you want to be? He asks this: what problem do you want to solve? What do you need to learn to help you solve that problem? Okay, go back to your school and demand that education. That's an interesting set of questions there. It's interesting. It conveys the idea that we believe that the child is capable of solving not just any problem, but the big problems. Because they are. Now, they may not know it. Fair enough. There's any number of things that get in the way. Did they have breakfast? Did their friends treat them right, before class started? Are parents fighting at home? Are parents at home at all? Do they have a home? There's any number of things that are there that get in the way of kids understanding what they're capable of. But we still are the people who can get them in touch with what they're capable of. That's who we are. That's how we see ourselves. And when we allow them to surprise us, when we ask questions for which we may not know the answers, which is not comfortable for everybody. Not all teachers want to do that. They want to say, no. If I'm going to ask a question, I want to know the answer. Who loses in that scenario? Let me be blunt. It's you. It's you because how do you feel when you're driving home from work? When you're driving home at the end of the day, typically teachers are in this space. Oh my God, let me just get home, right? Now, it's because our work is tiring. It is exhausting. It is professionally, personally, emotionally, and spiritually exhausting to be a teacher. It is. Hence, right? Somebody cuts us off on the highway, rage, those kinds of moments. But it could be different. There have been moments, you've had them, there have been moments when you're driving home and you are jazzed. Not because you're leaving school, but because you can't wait to tell the people at home what this child said today. Oh my God. I asked this question and this kid came up with this idea. I'd never heard anything like it. We all just stopped and looked at her like, why haven't you been speaking all year? That was amazing. You got to hear what this little boy said. Suddenly, half the room understood something that I couldn't get to them because he was able to put it in another way, and suddenly they got it. It was an amazing moment. It's why we teach, to have those moments. And the more we ask questions for which we don't know the answers, the greater the chances are that they will pop up with something that surprises us, which allows us to be like, woo, I can't wait to tell my babe wife about this, right? We have those moments. Not every day. That would be kind of weird, right? But still, we have them. And we need to have more of them. We need to have more of them because, when we think about the stuff that we do, think about what you do as a teacher. How do you see yourself, right? I want you to think about conversations you've had with students for a minute. You've had some number of conversations with students over time. That's kind of a part of our work, right? But there have been moments when students said things that floored you, where what the student said caught you off guard, managed to make you laugh out loud, almost broke you down in tears, right then and there in front of everybody. I've had those moments as a teacher. I've had moments where a kid said something in class, and I broke down in tears because I wasn't ready for it. But it was so powerful. It was so powerful that it defines how I see my work. Was it embarrassing to break down in tears in front of the kids? Well, yeah, it actually was. Would I trade it for anything? Not a chance. Not a chance. Think about the things that students have said to you that caught you. That caught you. It caught your breath. And put it in the chat. I want you to take just a moment, talk to the person next to you. What are the things that the students have said to you that were that powerful? And then add it to the chat. Let's take a couple of minutes and work on that now. Go. Because when these things start coming in, when you start adding these things to the chat, what's the chat? That. What you're going to find is that this is the stuff that tells us why we teach. The stuff that allows us to stop and say, wow, wow. The stuff that defines why we choose to put the immense amount of mostly unthanked energy into the work that we do. Because so many of these kids, so many of them, have important messages for us. And these messages are messages that allow us to understand why we do what we do. Keep an eye on the chat as we go forward, because you're going to see amazing things come through. Take a look. They're not just thinking about themselves, are they? Look at that. And then that. Wow. When people really start adding these pieces in, you'll see it. Add them in. Now, sometimes when we talk about things like shifting the nature of our questions, going from who knows the right answer to, what might a right answer be? What might this look like? How might one see this? In order to try to get into their heads, right? Some people will say, what you're talking about is removing the rigor from education. No, I'm not. I'm not talking about giving a kid a trophy for showing up, right? We have a bit of a thing in our culture of praising children for every last little thing. Young man, I was watching you and I saw you put a left foot forward and then a right. Well done, right? Talented genius that we have here. Now, when we begin to praise children for things that they know aren't really meriting praise, what we're really doing is fostering a certain kind of cynicism in children, and I think that's criminal. What we need to do is to be able to tell them, good, can you do better? Good, can you do better? Good, how can you make it better? So, how many of you have seen the Austin's butterfly video? A handful. The rest of you, Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad, we've reached that point. It's an amazing video, right? I'm not going to show it to you right now. However, later, I want you to take a look at it. It's an amazing video for this reason. And I'll tell you the story to get the reason out of it. Austin is asked to draw a butterfly. Now, he's actually shown a picture of a beautiful butterfly and asked to draw it. Please draw this butterfly. And his first stab at it is that. Now, if any of you were asked to draw a butterfly, if I was asked to draw a butterfly, it probably would be something quite similar. Done. Can I take this off the list? Check. But this was part of a program by the Expeditionary Learning people, real interesting crowd. And what they do is they train kids to ask other kids about their work and to give very specific pieces of advice about what they're doing. So the kids were doing things like saying, okay, in the picture, the wings are kind of more triangular and less curved. Could you draw it again and make the wings kind of more triangular? Austin goes back and he draws a new butterfly. He comes back, they're like, good, good, good. In the picture, there's like some things coming off of the bottom wings out there at the bottom. Can you add that? Austin goes back, draws a new butterfly, comes back, shows it. They're like, good, good, good. There's actually this pattern in the wings so this happens several times. They're very specific. It's not just like, that's great, that sucks. That's not it. They're giving him very specific advice. And after 6 shots at this, Austin, who is in first grade, we're talking about a 6-year-old, his 6th attempt to draw the butterfly looks like this. He was capable of that. He started there, and that's where he got. Which one goes on the fridge? Both, yeah. Both. You want to know where you start and where you get to when effort is a part of the equation. You want to know that that's what you're capable of doing, but that when you're checking off the box, that's typically what it looks like. But that's who you are. That's important. That's really important. And comes back to what we do. How do we see ourselves? How do we look at who we are and what we do and how we bring out or don't bring out the very best in these kids? What is it that we do that we can tweak this way, that way, change the wording of the question, whatever it may be, give them the opportunity to change their audience and bring out something very different? Well, my little nonprofit does a number of these contests where we ask kids to make videos, right? So, I showed you literally earlier. I'm going to show you another one. This one's called the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano Counties. And I'm showing you this one because this is just an interesting project. What we do is we say, okay, we want you to get to know charities in your community and to tell their stories in short videos. Do that. Let us know kind of who these people are and why they do what they do and why that's important to them. Can you tell their story? Can you really do the job of planning that video? What the story would be like? Can you do the research? Can you find out who they are? Can you interview volunteers and find out what makes them tick? Why is this stuff important? And along the way, of course, understand that there are plenty of adults out there, plenty of adults, who are really good people working to make their communities better. Because a lot of these kids who go home, that's not what they see at home. The adults they see at home are people who are facing all kinds of challenges, personal challenges, maybe with just challenge to be nice on any kind of regular basis at all. And to know that there are people who actually give their time to helping others out, that's pretty big. Well, here's a video that, and get this, this video was made by freshman boys. Now, if you look in the dictionary under the word bonehead, freshman boy is often, Now, if you are a freshman boy and I just insulted you, I apologize, right? But let's just take a look. Let's see what these freshman boys did.
My name is Nancy, and I've been volunteering at the Contra Costa and Solano County Food Bank for about a year now. The Community Produce Program was launched in early 2012. The program delivers fresh fruits and vegetables to hardworking families that otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it. I volunteer at several different sites in Antioch that provide fresh produce to families in need. Between myself and my family, we've volunteered over 300 hours. What I find most rewarding is physically handing food to families and children and seeing the smiles on their faces. We're not only feeding them, we're feeding them nutrient-rich food. Volunteering with the produce program is quite simple. We show up on site about 15 minutes early, we help set up the tables, hand out food to the individuals, and help clean up. The entire process takes about an hour and a half. The produce program has about 250 volunteers. Aside from the community program, the food bank has many other volunteer opportunities. Even children under 15 years of age can volunteer with a parent. The Contra Costa Food Bank's ultimate goal is to increase awareness of hunger in Contra Costa County and Solano counties, and also to alleviate hunger by providing an organized system to distribute food.
They were really quite smart about it. They let somebody else do the talking. That was a good move, right? And when you think about what that assignment was, I want you to get to know a charity and get your groups together, pick a charity, research it, contact them, talk to them, tell their story. That could have been an assignment that just happened in the class. Teacher saw it, no one else ever did, but that's not what this was. This was an assignment where the kids were getting beyond the walls of their classrooms. Well, what they were doing was discovering that people were quite excited about the idea of them making a video. Nonprofits are a particular crowd, right? Nonprofits tend to be these three things: overworked, understaffed, underfunded. So if someone comes along and says, we'd like to make a video telling about what you do, they're into that. They like that. A number of times, a number of the nonprofits that the kids, kind of went out and found out about, they come back to the teacher and they say, could we put that video on our site? Heck yeah, by all means. And when the kids know that their work can make a difference, that good versus good enough thing comes back full force. The kids understand. A story well told about a charity, about their learning, told to a larger audience, that's stuff that needs to be good. Now in this case, clearly a really well done video might attract new supporters, new support, new donations to a charity. Actually, the way our project works is that the finalist videos all earn $200 donations to that charity, the highlighted charity, from my little charity. So there's skin in the game already. They're like, all right, but that, $200 pales next to what a really good video can do, getting, a group of supporters to turn around. And then there's the PR value to the school. You ever talk to a parent in line at the grocery store? My kid's going to enter middle school next year, high school next year, elementary next year. If he or she goes to your school, what would happen? What would they do? What would they experience? What would they learn? What are you going to tell them? What strengths of your school are you going to say? You're going to tell them this? Well, you see, at our school, we really care about kids. That's so much better than those schools where they don't, right? But still, give them something concrete. Our high school students learn to go out and make video stories about charities in the community to be able to convey what they do. Would my child be able to do that? You want to give them the concrete bits that they'd be able to go, oh. So there are lots of little kind of moments along the way where their stories about their learning can be very powerful. It can be a little more traditional than that. I'm going to show you, for example, a reading strategies video. Some of you are like, really? Perhaps there's something sharp that I could thrust into my skull, a reading strategies video. Great, right? Now, Give us a sec, see what you think. This was put together by some elementary kids and their teacher in Plattsmouth, Nebraska. All right, so see what you think of vocabulary mystery. Here we go.
Hello? What? A vocabulary mystery? I'm on my way.
What does vacant even mean?
Without understanding vacant, it just doesn't make sense. There are clues you need to look for to figure out the meaning of a word. Use context clues. Let's figure out the meaning of the word cunning.
Clue was tricked. It tells us the students were tricky. Cunning means tricky.
Time to keep reading to see what a word means.
Kilowatts are carnivores. I wonder what a carnivore is.
Keep reading.
Carnivores are animals that eat meat.
Now let's look at a picture to figure out a word.
The kids were elated when they got to Disney World. They look pretty happy. So elated must mean happy.
Now let's break apart words to figure out what they mean.
I see the word toothache in the compound word. Toothache. I know it means a tooth that has an ache.
Honorable. I know able means given, and honor means respect. Honorable means given respect.
So, all we need to do is look for clues?
The sentence tells us that the neighbors moved away. That has to be a clue.
If the neighbors moved away, the house would be empty.
Vacant means empty.
I guess solving vocabulary mysteries isn't so hard after all.
Look for clues.
Do you know your vocabulary? Vocabulary, vocabulary. Do you know your vocabulary? It's all around the text. There are prefixes and suffixes, context clues and compound words. But never forget your pictures. That's just what might help you.
Isn't that a cool video? Oh, and I told you reading strategies, you were like, and that's the thing. When we see what kids can put into what they do, it gives us that chance to be excited about it. Now, I know the response. Well, that's all very nice, but how long did it take? Well, yes, I get it. Our number one stress is time. I get that. But here's my question to you. Will they remember this stuff? And if they don't, do they have somewhere to turn? We could, even stressed as we are with time, we could teach twice as fast as we teach right now. You could just be tossing stuff out, just one thing after another. Say, right, remember this, remember this, remember this. Just go, 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 go. Would they remember any of it? No. We're not trying to just get it broadcast. We're trying for them to receive the message. So let's find these ways that allow us to have it stick the first time. Let's use the tools that are available to us that allow them to stop and go, You're like, yeah, but I don't know how to. Give them an option. All right, your job is to do a one-page essay, or if you want to do it a little differently, you just tell me how, and if I approve it, you may do it that way. Give them the chance. Some kid will come along and say, I want to do a video. Okay, show me your script. Cool. You may do a video. And then the other kids see the video, and they're like, ooh, I want to do that. We want to get them into that space where they want the work to be good, not just good enough. It gets us back to the question, how do we see ourselves? How do we see ourselves? Are you a different teacher than you were this summer, a month ago? Are you a different teacher than you were a year ago? Man, I hope so. I hope there are things that you've learned that you're like, I tried this out in class, and this didn't work at all, but some kid actually offered a really good piece of advice, and now we're trying this. It's actually working quite well. Cool. We're going to be adding new stuff all the time. That's part of the excitement of what we do. We never have to stop and wonder whether our work matters, do we? Kid walks in the room and looks at us, we know from the look on their face that what we do matters. So if what we're trying to do is find new things to make happen in the classroom, things that are effective for them, that are engaging for them and for us, why don't we do it? Well, for a lot of people, there's a barrier. It's this. CIS. It's a terrible thing, really. Oh, CIS, I've never heard of it. Do I have it? You might. It eats away at the very soul of those who have it. Do you have it? What is it? CIS is comparative inadequacy syndrome. A tendency to focus in on what we can't do. I can't do what this teacher in the room next to me can do. I can't do what these teachers in my grade level can do. I can't do what this other teacher in my department can do. Can't. It's kind of sad and a little pathetic. But the truth is that we're capable of all kinds of things. But we have to give it a try. And if you haven't heard anything I have said this entire talk, I hope you hear the very next thing I say, which is this. The only person to whom you ever need compare yourself is the you who you were yesterday. That's it. That's the only one. Are you a better teacher today than you were yesterday? Have you had a conversation that allowed you to see something a little differently? Have you tried something new that allowed you to see what might be useful for that kid who can't seem to handle it the traditional way? Have you added something? That's how we get better. And it has nothing to do with how other people teach, really. It has everything to do with whether we know we're doing what we can to bring out the best in these kids, in part because that's what makes the work interesting for us. Matter of fact, it makes it magical. It makes it the kind of work that allows us to know while other people go home at the end of the day thinking, man, one more day, right? We know that we're changing lives if we're pushing ourselves. That's part of it. You can be that person who walks into class and says, guys, today we're going to try something new. And you caught their attention, didn't you? Because maybe they weren't expecting it. Maybe they know how class goes every day, that they walk in, they sit down, and they do something on the board for 3 minutes, and then they talk with each other for 5 minutes, and then there's a lecture for 8 minutes, and then they do pair share. You know how, right? But when you look at them and you say something new, they don't know what's coming. They don't know what's coming. It's unpredictable. That's exciting. It's interesting. It breaks a certain predictability that they're used to. Kids don't think school is boring. Their vocabulary is rather limited, and what they don't know to say is they find school predictable. And it's when we start getting them guessing that they go, they actually love school. They love being around their friends. They love being around a caring, stable adult. A certain amount of structure. They don't all have that at home. And we can give it to them. This is the Krause Center for Innovation at Foothill College in Los Altos Hills. And every year we bring together 50 teachers as a part of a program called Merit. It's a really interesting program. And I would encourage you to look at this program. At least 1 or 2 people in your district have already done it. Now, what does it mean? It means you're working with other people for an entire year, mostly online, but there are 2 weeks in the summer where you get together and you spend every day just talking about wildly cool and interesting things, learning a bunch of stuff, and designing stuff for the coming year with a bunch of other really fascinating people. If you can deal with that, if you can make that kind of sacrifice for the children, then give it a shot, right? Because it's interesting, it's fun. We learn there to explore good questions. Good questions. And as we change what we do to see what can work, in order to ask the kind of questions that bring out the best in them, we actually end up with something different in our classes. There's that difference between helping students find the right answer and our classrooms being defined by the tedious pursuit of right answers. Because if what we're doing is trying to raise everybody's game a notch or 3 or 8, then we might find that we have a different set of messages for them. The messages may well be these. We genuinely care how they think. We know that building off of each other's ideas can lead to something amazing. And above all, that they have something to give. They need to know. And you're the ones who can help them understand that. Now, I started this presentation with a story about a trip to San Francisco and a discount I received, right? And what's the moral of the story? The moral is, change is inevitable. But with every little change, I hope I can find a way to kind of enjoy it, whether it's the extra $10 or something else. I hope that I can be that person who can enjoy the changes that come, because that's the constant, that there's change. It doesn't have to be wholesale. It doesn't mean you have to set aside strengths that you have been cultivating for decades, perhaps. It doesn't mean that at all. It means that the little changes allow us to figure out what some of these kids need. Or are we just writing off some of them? Well, they can't all get it. Really? Certainly not if we're not trying. But we can try. Among my hopes are that over the course of the day, there'll be something that you learn, some tool that fascinates you, that allows you to see some kind of new possibility in an activity that you haven't done before, something that allows you to say, that I want to try. I want to try that. I hope also that over the course of the semester, you might say, I'm going to do a project with these students. You might even stay in touch with me, because you might have kids make some videos about charities in their community, or videos about the little things that they learn that might help other people learn that stuff. Because it frustrates you every year when you get to that point, and kids make the same mistakes every year because there was stuff they were supposed to remember over the summer and failed to do so, big surprise. But maybe a really good video might get them kind of back in gear a little bit faster, and I would love to highlight their creativity with you. This is me 10 years ago. And you can be in touch with me because there's my email address. I answer every email I get eventually. Right? And this is usually the slide I end with, but I learned something cool this week. How many of you have heard of keynote.com? Here's my new last slide right there. Now, I end the newsletter each month with a particular idea, and I will finish this keynote now because I see I'm over time. Sorry. All right? With that same idea. And that idea is this. May you inspire and be inspired each and every day. Thank you so much for coming out this morning.